Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Coastal Crypto Castle. I'm John Maz. We have some interesting miners to talk about and compare for you guys today. Our main focus is going to be the Goldshell x6s, but I wanted to compare them to some of the other machines that you may have seen either on our website or in other past review videos. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the Antminer L3. It's been a staple for script miners for a long time. Goldshell's response to the L3 was the Goldshell X5. We know it's a powerhouse of a miner. It's a tank. It goes through the paces. It really, hits the ground running. To Goldshell's X5, we have a response by Antminer, which would be the L5. The L5 we know was manufactured solely for farm implementation and wasn't released to the general public. Then from Antminer we had Goldshell's rebuttal, which was the LT5 and the LT5 Pro, another larger machine. And then from that point on, we had our main subject topic here is the Goldshell x6s, a much more efficient machine than these other ones. But before we jump into this, I want to give an honorable mention to our newest miner to the script lineup. This is the BlueStar L1. I'll put a link in the description down below and hopefully above my head someplace for that review and that teardown video. But our main focus is this one here. This is a machine that, like the X5, like the L5, is very difficult to come by and to find. They are available on our website, coastalcryptomining.com. I'll put a link in the description down below. It is a unique machine. It does have only two front-facing fans. We see that the power supply is hard-mounted to the side of the machine, and it's using an 1800 watt, this is a much larger power supply. It's a custom power supply for these machines, because in hash mode we're looking at around 17 or 1.7 to 1.8 gigahash of processing power at around 1800 watts, a little over 1800 watts. Now these machines are very efficient when we talk about balance mode or low power mode, but they are real bang up machines. So let's go ahead, let's tear into it real quick so you guys can see what the inside looks like before we go ahead and jump into the web GUI. Alright, so to tear into the Goldshell x6s, there's a few things that we have to consider because this is a hard-mounted power supply. This power supply is directly linked to this control board. So if we take a look here, we have this 1 2-cable wire, okay, that is separate from all of our other power cables. We want to disconnect this one first. It's actually got 3 wires on it, black, red, and green. This is the control cable for the power supply because this miner has different power settings. After we do that, we can go ahead and disconnect the remaining power cables from this machine. Now, this machine only has 3 hash boards. Each hash board has around 121 ASIC chips, similar to the L5 with its 3 hash boards, and you can see that each board actually has 3 6-pin connectors. We don't need to run all 6 pins, but running all 3 6-pin connectors on each board will give us a more evenly dispersed heat and voltage reading across the boards. So now that we've got these disconnected, we can go ahead and flip it on its end here. Actually, you know what? Let's make this a little simpler for us. Let's slide out the power supply since it's now disconnected. Flip this on its end, and we can go ahead and remove these front-facing screws to get a look at the inside of this machine. Now I'm leaving the fans attached to the main board here, and you can see I'm actually breaking the factory seal. Now that's, these machines came straight to us from a farm. They were manufactured for a specific farm and have never been opened up before. So you guys and I are going to be the first ones to really take a look inside of this machine. Go ahead and reveal. Oh, we got one more screw hiding there. Yep, that's all of them. Oh yeah, you can tell this thing really hasn't been cleaned too well since it's been pulled out of the farm. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to clean these, and we're going to put them in our ultrasonic cleaner. I don't see any major deformations. I see a lot of dust. I don't see any loose heat sinks or anything like that. But we're going to go ahead, since it does look this bad on this side, we're going to flip it back up. We're going to remove the ribbon cables. I'm going to remove the back cover. Now, in all honesty, I wasn't planning on going this far, but after seeing how disgusting the inside of this machine is, we're definitely going to pull these hash boards out and take a closer look. Again, breaking the factory seal. Take a look at these machines here a little bit closer. All right, so we're disconnected. We can go ahead and slide that the hash board out, and you can see how narrow these hash boards are compared to other hash boards that we've looked at in the past. You can see here on the side, we have Goldshell x6s version 4. So they have done a few different iterations of this machine, but we're going to go ahead and dust this out. We're going to take a closer look at it. Just a quick glance at it. I don't see any delamination of the board. I don't see any missing heat sinks. And all in all, except for the mountains of dust on it, it looks really nice, to be honest with you. So we're going to go ahead and pull these out. But in the meantime, let's jump on over to the web GUI and take a look at what this machine does from a hashing standpoint once it is clean and once it is fully operational. If you guys have any more questions on the X6 that I haven't covered yet in terms of teardown, please let me know in the comments down below. Or if you have any questions moving forward about the web GUI, I'm more than happy to answer them for you. This is a really interesting little machine. I'm really happy that we have the access to it and the availability to share them with you guys. Even the control board is a very interesting looking little control board. I'm just finding more and more little things about this machine that I really like. So in ASIC fashion, it looks like they've reused a pre-existing control board. You can see it actually has another ribbon cable port for an additional hash board. So this thing, maybe we could alter it in the future, make something a little bit more efficient, a little more hashing power later on. But for now, let me get it cleaned. Let's jump over to the web GUI and see what that looks like. And just like that with YouTube magic, I'm back here at the home office. Man, that thing was filthy. It took me longer than I expected to clean that thing out. I ended up just putting it in the ultrasonic cleaner for a few minutes. Really get a good deep clean on that, because this thing has some interesting features on it that we're going to be talking about later on in the video. So make sure you stay tuned for the remainder of the second half of this video. But here, real quick, guys, just so you know, in case you forgot, from a few minutes ago, let's do a quick comparison of what this thing looked like and what it looks like now. So here's a quick screenshot. Look how filthy this thing was. Even the inside of the case. I mean, I completely disassembled this thing off camera and gave it a thorough deep cleaning. This is what it looks like now as we put it back together. So much better, much cleaner. Way better feeling about tuning this thing and overclocking this machine now that it looks like this. Had to throw a Coastal Crypto sticker on the top of it, and just we gave it a real good cleaning. We even the PSU I decided to clean just because how nasty this thing was. Now remember, this thing still had factory seals on it, so this thing hasn't been cleaned from when it was turned off at its final location, its farm, before it came to us. Now, this is something I do for every used piece of equipment that comes across my shipping desk at Coastal Crypto at the castle, is we do deep cleans on all of our used equipment.
just before it gets out to you guys. So, with any reassurance, so hopefully that helps you guys out. This is, before and after, how much work goes into these machines. But let's go ahead. Let's take a quick look at the specs before we dive into the GUI, just so we have an understanding of what we're looking at here. Man, that thing was nasty. Whew. All right, so again, this is the Goldshell x6s. This has 3 mining modes. Pretty standard stuff looking at this here. Low power mode, balanced mode, and then we have the hash mode here at the top. Personally, I'm going to stick on the hash mode because I'm going to be overclocking or undervolting this thing based upon the pre-existing settings for that already pre-installed or pre-set up or configured setting. 7,000 RPM fans, that's stock. These things, again, have been in mining farms. They've gone through some kind of maintenance, possibly. I can't guarantee those settings, that 7,000 RPM fan from Coastal Crypto. I do guarantee that the fans will work when they come to you, though. Operating temperature standard for some of these machines, 35, 40 degrees Celsius. Miner size, the case, we saw how small the boards were in comparison to the size of the case. The reason why the case is a little bit larger than, say, the control board actually is, we have that little bit of buffer between the fans and the actual hash boards, is because the control board itself is so long. It is using quite short ribbon cables, in my opinion, but everything works out. I would have liked to see additional fans on the back. I suppose, if we were to really overclock this machine, we could put additional fans on the back and use fan splitters on the control board. Got to remember, though, those 120 millimeter fans roughly consume about 5 amps at max velocity. And they between, if you're running a 7,000 to 6,500 RPM fan, depending on the model, you're looking right around 265 CFMs per fan. So you have to make sure that they match up to get that velocity and that proper flow through the machine. But let's go ahead. Let's turn over to the GUI here. I'm going to remote into my shipping platform over at the castle so you guys can see what we got going on. So this thing has been running for just under 2 hours since we've cleaned it. Temperatures are settling in at 40 degrees roughly, 44. I see some high ones at 47. This thing is just in the middle of our castle right now on our test bench. We could probably potentially point it to a better, airflow and get those temperatures down a little bit lower. Fans aren't at 100% right now, so we do have those higher temperatures, and we are on hash mode. Before we dive into the back door, I know I keep alluding to it, and it's coming. Don't worry, I promise that we'll get to it. I did want to point out one additional feature that Goldshell does have for all of their machines. Now, the back door is specific to certain machines. This one is one of them. But there is a setting that I want to show you guys if you ever have any questions or you're trying to figure something out about your machine, you're getting an error that you just don't understand. There is a debug tab that you can pull up. Now, there wasn't any link to it. You actually have to physically type in your IP address, and it's /# for the X6. It's /# !debug. Some of the other models don't need the exclamation mark. It's just /# !debug. But you can at least this way, for the X6, for a lot of the Goldshell models, see the chipsets, see kernel logs, see miner history, see system logs, and lots of other information that is great to know, especially if you start overclocking or undervolting some of these machines. So right now I'm on the chipset page. Let's just double check here. Let's refresh it. Yep. It looks real good. We're seeing 121 chips, all green across all 3 boards. Even after going through the ultrasonic cleaner, we use believe it or not, a Windex and deionized water mixture with a evaporation component that we throw in there as well, an additive, just to make sure that everything evaporates rather quickly so we can reassemble these machines and get them out to you guys. Again, I threw this thing in the ultrasonic cleaner for 15, 20 minutes per board. blew it off, dried it out, did everything I had to do, put it back in the machine, and turn it on, and it works. So we can go through the core temperatures here. We do have a few chips on some of the boards that are running a little different than the others, a little out of the ordinary. Most of them are hit around 16. We have a couple that are 15, which is fine. Temperatures, we don't. Looks like we're having a little bit of an issue here with some of these temperature sensors. Now, this just could be something that is from another GUI or another machine that they just left in for this one, because we do know that the temperature sensors do work, referring back to the main IP GUI that we saw. We can see our clock settings for all the chips. It looks like they are all clocked in at the same frequency. The nuances are a little over the place. Nuances and accepted versus rejected shares. And we have our hardware errors. You can see some of these chips are really hitting home with some of these hardware errors. And that could have been because we powered off and powered on and so on like that. As you restart the machine without physically unplugging it, restarting it from the GUI, you'll get more hardware errors than you typically would if you just unplugged it, let it sit, and then plugged it back in, doing what's called a hard reboot. But everything to me looks real good. I don't see anything out of the ordinary. We can check out some of the monitoring tabs, miner system logs, the miner itself, where it would implement some of the memory and your wallet addresses. The release isn't here for this particular model. That would be the release for firmware release and so on. And then we have our miner history and kernel log. Typically, when you have an issue with Goldshell, they will come and look at your kernel log or your kernel message, and that's where a lot of your issues will be prevalent and be able to be picked up and diagnosed. But let's jump back to the main GUI. Looks like we're averaging about 1620 or 1.62 gigahash. Looks like we've touched a little bit higher than that, but overall it looks really stable at that 16. I think as it sits and continues to really sink in and heat up a little bit, and the chips are starting to reset after we did the ultrasonic cleaning, we'll see some higher temperatures. But everything else to me looks really good. Let's go through some of these settings on the sides of the GUI here. First one being miner. We're going to come back to this one in a second, but just going to give you a quick overview of what it looks like. And then we have our systems tab. Now, network settings, fairly straightforward. These things will automatically be picked up on your network. You can static IP these if you want to. We typically do at the Coastal Crypto Castle after the testing is done and it gets put into the actual farm. Right now it's on the test bench, so this IP address will change at some point in time when it gets put on the main network. But for you guys, you can see it. This is just what we got going on. We do recommend, no matter what machine you get, you do change the password. And we know that there are some Goldshell viruses going around and some Antminer viruses going around. So change your passwords, make sure you get that stuff up to date. And then obviously you have your factory reset and update your firmware, and then the reset tab down here at the bottom. But let's get to what everybody's waited for. We've talked about this backdoor on other machines. The X5 has it. We know that the LT5, new firmware for the LT5 doesn't have it, but the old firmware for the LT5 Pro does. Some of the box miners from Goldshell has this backdoor. It's just about finding it. That's the tricky part. I've already gone ahead. I've already found it, so I'm going to share that with you guys right now. I'm going to do it twice so you guys know that I'm not lying about it. So right here where it says miner setting, you see the little diamond at the top. We're going to rapidly click this 10 to 11 times. Now this works on other machines in the same type of box that you will find on Goldshell. I like to be under hash mode. You can be under balanced or low power mode, but for this example, we're going to stay underneath hash mode, and we're going to rapidly click this, and hopefully we'll get that back door to pop up. There it is, pops up. I'll do that again, guys, just so you I'm not lying to you. It's really there. I'm not pulling your leg. This isn't clickbait. Let's go ahead, refresh, come back to it. It goes right back to your stock set, your hash mode. We're going to rapidly click it. and then it pops open again. The fan speeds, for some reason, this backdoor, the fan speeds, this version says it's 100 RPM. I believe it's referring to 100% RPM, not 100 RPMs per minute. So it is a little confusing. I've seen it in different formats on different machines. We're not going to touch that right now, just because I know the fans are operating at the optimum speed. We're just going to leave it alone. But what we can do is we can underclock and overclock here. So as you saw before on the debug page, that each chip, 121 chips per board across 3 hash boards, are all tuned to a 725 megahertz 0.72 volt setting. We're going to alter that and see if we can get a little bit more hashing power out of this machine. I don't recommend doing it as much as I'm about to increase it. I recommend doing 25 megahertz of increase and about 0.15 to 0.20 volt increase or decrease. You don't want to jump up too fast, but because, you know, I want to show you guys some fun stuff, and we're going to see what this thing can do. I'm going to ramp this thing up real quick, real fast, and see what kind of settings we can get. It may go good, it may go bad. I don't know yet because I really haven't had the chance to play around. But let's go ahead. We're going to jump straight up to 800 megahertz, and I'm going to jump right up to 1 volt, 0.0 per chip. That's a lot. So we're increasing it quite a bit. Now, before I hit apply, let's hit apply and let it do its thing. So we're going to hit apply. It's going to go through its little setting here. You can see automatically the apply button grays itself out. What I like to do on top of hitting the apply, I come over to system and I'm going to hit reset. So while that's resetting, I want to bring up let's see, where is it? Right there. So while that's resetting, let's look at these settings again. So this power supply is already maxed out at the hash setting that we have. And the power supply itself is 2,500 watts roughly. So we're already at that 80% rule at the max hash power with 2250 watts at 1780. So bumping it up to 1 volt per chip, it's going to be interesting. We're really going to be pushing this power supply to the limit. These power supplies do only work on 220 to 40 volt power inputs. They will not work on 120 or 115 or 110. We've had a lot of questions come across the desk or the help desk as of late. We recommend using your machines for the most efficiency at 220, 240. It makes more sense. You're going to, keep the resistance, keep the heat down in your machines using those higher voltages. You're also going to keep your amperage load down as well. But I think that was enough time. Let's go ahead, jump back over to the GUI and see what we got going on. Restart process finished. We're going to hit OK. We're going to come over to the miner. It looks like all the boards have returned. Some of them are booting up a little bit faster than others. So we're going to give this a few minutes, and we'll come back and see what kind of hash rate we were able to get to with that increase in voltage and frequency. All right, guys, so it's been about 5 minutes or so since we did that implementation of the overclocking settings. And you can see it doesn't typically work. We're getting some weird readings here. Let's go ahead and check out the debug mode or the debug folder here and see what we got going on. Chip temperature, chips all popped up, so that's good. Still seeing the same core readings. Let's jump down to frequency. Looks like the frequencies were updated to that 800 megahertz, and we're getting nuance looks okay. Let's see what else we got. Looks like we're missing a little bit of data here. It seems like I don't know. Let's refresh it here. Make sure that we got everything we need. There we go. It popped up there. Scroll down to the bottom, nuance and hardware errors. So again, it has only been running for about 5 minutes, so the hardware errors haven't been super crazy yet, but they are jumping up there on some of these chips. So what that tells me is our settings are off. So what we can do is we can get back over here. It looks like it's still climbing. It's still trying to level out. We're at 900 megahertz right now at 1,000 mega hash at 800 megahertz and 1 volt. So it's doing its best to get back up to those higher levels. I may let it sit here for a little bit longer, but these are some of the things that you guys are going to encounter when trying to overclock. My theory is, with this current setting, looking at the hardware errors, and it's struggling to get past a gigahash worth of hashing power, is our power supply, believe it or not our chips. One thing I am going to do for this X6s is we're going to reach out to one of our favorite suppliers for power cables. That's the Veteran Miner. I'll put a link in to the description down below for some of his stuff. We're going to upgrade the power cables and potentially upgrade the power supply as well. Hopefully we can reduce some of that heat and really dive deeper into doing some finer overclocking settings, either under overclocking or undervolting, to get a better reading. As you're doing this, guys, I do want to remind you to remember, write down, save, take screenshots of your settings as you go forward, especially your original hash setting. So real quick, before we sign off, I'm going to show you guys that my settings did stick. So I'm going to rapidly click. There it is. Miner power plan, 800 megahertz, 1 volt, and so on. I'm going to go back to the 725 and the 0.72. I'm actually going to go up to 0.75, give it just a little bit of a kick, and see what that does, keeping the frequency the same. And I would report back to you guys. If you have any questions, you have any thoughts, you're thinking about picking up a Goldshell x6s, make sure you guys check out coastalcryptomining.com. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate the support. We are here to help the crypto community. We did a collab with Red Panda Miner for New Year's Eve. Go check out that video. We gave out some merch and an S9. We look forward to doing more of that kind of content with other cryptocurrency creators in the future. And of course, I will do my best to rip these machines apart as they come across my desk so you can see what makes them tick. So until next time, guys, we appreciate you, and take it easy and keep mining.